Hey there, hey my friends and fans. Vlad De Briansky is here, and I got your questions. And this is kind of one of those things that is easier now with the internet to communicate with each other. So we'll do that. We'll take advantage. So I'll answer the questions. Okay. First one is from Philip DeSessa. He's asking, did you ever had hands, wrists injuries from playing guitar? Well, not that I had injuries, but I had some kind of problems with this. I'm a right-handed, so with left-handed, sometimes I have, if I have a lot of gigs and a lot of, I should say, if I don't sleep well, don't eat well, don't relax much, don't rest, then I do get some kind of stiffness here and there. And sometimes I have, I've played gigs that it's like, just a little bit too much, right? And I play Telecaster, so the Telecaster neck, and the one I have, it's from the 50s, so it's pretty thick, so, you know, it gets a little bit heavy on the wrist. So yeah, I didn't have any injuries per se, but it was a little bit difficult. Now, a question from, I'm apologizing if I'm not pronouncing it right, Nima Banu. And Nima's asking, what was your first song which you played on the guitar? The very first song played was a song that my brother taught me. It's actually quite simple. If I remember, it was, let's see. There you go, there you go. That was it. That was my first one. I think I was maybe 6 years old. 6 or 7 years old. My brother taught me. The second actually song I played, which we released on this album, Dreamland. I mean, it wasn't in that composition-wise form, but it was like this, very simple. I think I was also like 7 or 8 years old, and the idea was this. So that was it. Then later on, when I was 12, and then I did like, that was about 12. And now, maybe a year ago, I recorded this For You song on the Dreamland. This basically comes from that, thanks to my wife, actually. So now, let's see what else. Nikki Lashuk. Hey, Nikki, you're in LA, right? Who's your most favorite guitar player? I never thought my one favorite guitar player. I always had guitars that I liked here and there. Let's think what my childhood, why I became a guitarist. That's probably the best way to approach it. I think my favorite guitar player back then was Joe Walsh. And because of Eagles and Joe Walsh in particular, his solos, I wanted to play guitar. Then later I heard John Scofield. That kind of inspired me to learn jazz. Yeah, then later on a bunch of different guys, you know. A lot of people actually say that I sound like Jeff Beck or somebody. I actually didn't know who Jeff Beck was until I was probably 30. So, yeah, so my influences are not Jeff Beck, even though I very much admire him. Now, Brian Collier. Hey, Brian! When do we get some vino? Good question, Brian. Well, I'll be in LA soon, so I promise I'll give you a call and we'll have some good vino. Actually, some good vino I just tried, Austrian. Very unique. Now, Olgerd Cheselsky. Чому Telecaster in Ukrainian? Why Telecaster? Good question. I don't know. I grew up playing on acoustic guitar, some strange guitars, Soviet guitars, because I was growing up in Soviet Union. Extremely hard to play guitars. And then I had a Gibson standard Les Paul, which I loved very much. And I played Gibson along the way, many, many ways. Then I had custom guitars made for me. Then I was endorsed by a couple of different guys. But the thing about Telecaster is like the first cool guitar, the first electric cool solid body guitar. And it has that sound, especially on, well, it's both necks. It's basically with the bridge and the neck pickups. It's just, it's that sound that my DNA just requires, and I love that. It kind of inspires me to play it. I always wanted to have a Telecaster, and I tried them, and I never liked the neck. So finally, I found this neck that I like, which is very thick. It's like a James Burton neck. Okay, let's move forward. Just a second. That's an interesting question. Okay, it's in Ukrainian, and I'll read in Ukrainian, then I'll translate. Іван Карп. Що для тебе означає бути українцем в Америці в твоєму оточенні? Чи це є важко? Взагалі в житті. Відповідь може бути англійською або українською. Дякую. Okay, I'll translate the question from Ivan Karp. He says, so what does it mean to be Ukrainian in the States if it's difficult in your environment? And the answer can be either English or Ukrainian. So I'll take a chance in English. Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm Ukrainian by heart and by blood, and I'm American by my mind and my existence. So basically I have two countries that shaped me, which is Ukraine, I was born in, and America, which made me who I am. My environment, my environment is different. I lived in New York City, San Francisco, California most of my life. The environment of California is sunny days, and all that stuff, and music, great people, good food, good wine, good company, good challenges. It doesn't make me think Ukrainian, it makes me think human. And I judge people not by the nationality per se, but humanity. And being Ukrainian helps me to identify my roots and knowing who I am and what does it mean for me in my values. And then I use that to my advantage, So it's a good thing. Okay, let's move forward. So, okay, found it. From John Swanner. What influence outside of musical heroes has influenced your playing the most? Good question. My heroes is my dad, my father, big hero of mine, my mom also. Then some, for example, I like some writers, and Mark Twain is one of my huge influences and probably one of my heroes. Because of him, I kind of look at life, as a comedy rather than the tragedy. So I take that into advantage, and I also have a couple of friends that kind of inspired me along the way, like two friends of mine. That's pretty much it. These are my heroes. My heroes are real people, not the written somewhere in books. From Adrian Carrier, biggest influence on your playing style? Do you prefer two piece or full band? I've seen you play both. 3-piece suits you. Thanks, Adrian. Biggest influence on me, on my playing style? Well, again, as I stated, I liked in the 70s Joe Walsh and the Eagles, then John Scofield. I liked them both at the same time. But my ear was adjusted to classical music. I liked Bach a lot, especially his choirs. And then, when I play guitar, or if I think about it, I like phrasing, right? I'm thinking of notes. And obviously, knowing the harmony helps. But for example, things like, right, so phrasing and interesting kind of intricate rhythms are important to me. I like that very much. Right? So things like that. I always like to go and surprise myself and the listener with some kind of intricate ideas in rhythm, number one, and number two, in harmony and voice leading. So when I think of these kind of guitar influences, it's hard for me to say. I think Bach is very important, Stravinsky is very important. Then I do like John Scofield a lot. And when I was a boy, I actually was mimicking him a lot. I like blues and rock and roll, and even though back when I was a child, I didn't have access to all of that stuff. But naturally, I like to express my feelings through blues guitar most of all, right? And then kind of colorize it with some fusion jazz licks, if you will. But it's just, to me, it's not fusion jazz. To me, it's just humor. But I like, for people to explain that. As far as the two-piece band and three-piece, the two-piece band is way more challenging and way more interesting to play. Because when you have a bass player, you kind of know, okay, so he's going to, take care of your harmony and the bass lines there. So you can just go and soloing. But when you don't have that, now that's a difficult situation. That's when you and the drummer have to talk to each other and understand exactly what's going to happen, and I have to be the orchestra, thinking everything, the bass lines, the harmonies, and the solo, the melody. So it's really challenging. I actually like two-piece band a lot. The venues are hard to find for that, because two-piece band sounds more like classical, almost venue, right? When you have a three-piece band, it's a club, and it works. So the three-piece band is easier to get a concert going. Sometimes I actually do one-piece band, just me, and that's kind of interesting as well because I use the looper and things like that. But it's mostly for master classes in colleges. So, but thanks that you like the three-piece band. That's also, it's more rock and roll. Чорнова Victoria in Ukrainian. Коли концерт у Львові або творча зустріч? The question is, when is the new show in Lviv, in Ukraine, or a masterclass or a meeting? Well, I don't know. Nobody's invited me in Ukraine so far. So we should probably do something for Ukrainians, because it's my country where I was born and raised, and I'm all for it. So if you have any ideas where we should play in Ukraine, yeah, let's talk and let's organize it. It's not up to me always to organize my own shows, right? So because the venues, they want to make sure that they have artists that they want to represent and so forth. So if you have ideas where I should play, again, as I said in the previous video, you should let me know, and we'll contact them and see if they can host us there. So it's not up to me, all right? All right, and the question from John Swanner. How did you develop playing fingerstyle as opposed to using a pick? What do you see as the advantages? Good question. Well, when I started playing guitar, I started playing acoustic when I was 7, and naturally it was all fingers, right? So basically, I remember playing Bach, like studying Bach, and right? Right? And the way you play acoustic guitar, you have a lot of control if you do it with fingers. You can't do this with a pick. You just can't do that. And so I started playing this way, and I played a lot of Bach. So on and so forth, right? So I was used to that as a child from the acoustic guitar. And then when I had my first electric guitar, it was a terrible electric guitar. The action was huge. It was terrible Soviet guitar. And what happened is, I saw that everybody's playing with a pick. So I made my own picks, right, from some plastic, whatever. And I tried to play it here and there, and it always was difficult for me. Even though the sound was kind of cool, then I had my Gibson, and I had my vibrato and the whole thing, right? And I did these whole things with a pick. And then when I was in bands, and then when I was 16, 18, it was all pick, because rock and roll, rock music, Gibson with the overdrive, the whole thing. So you had to do it with a pick, and I thought that was the proper thing to do. However, I always have the trouble with the sound because it wasn't comforting to me. And when I was in Boston, and I studied at Berklee College of Music, and my teacher was John Finn. He was a rock guitarist, and he played with pick. I think he was the first one to say that. Oh, he said, you're playing blues and you're playing like Stanley Jordan licks. And I'm like, oh, I love Stanley Jordan. And then I didn't realize that Stanley Jordan does the tapping, right? And then I realized, why do I have to play with a pick? Because everybody plays with a pick. So I started playing as I feel like it, right? So, and I started like learning bebop, things like that, for example. Right, and it's all in your hand, right? And then I started playing solos with that. So my fingers had nails on this hand, and on this one doesn't. And but then so I use these fingers as a pick, and very good control. So for example, if I can do with one finger a lot of sound, right? Right? And solo with one finger. So, and then I can do a bunch of interesting things. Right? And the sound changes with the neck here because of my fingers, and I can do many different things, right? And essentially it gives a lot of control. And that control creates the sound. Like a lot of people actually ask me about my sound chain because they think the sound chain has nothing to do with sound chain. It actually has to do with my fingers, I think. Because my sound chains on everything I do, on this album, for example, on Dreamland, I used the guitar, the telly, short cable, a cable maybe 4 feet, and an amp. That was it. And the amp was actually an old Highway, not the Twin or anything like that. That was it. And then I EQ'd the amp, like pretty much all to 10. That was it. And then I played it. And then the whole dynamic and all, it's all here. Right? So it's all here. I think it's because I use the fingers, not the pick. I'm used to it. It's good for me. I think my body relates to that sound. I don't think anybody should repeat that. Everybody should find whatever is most comfortable for the guitarist. A lot of people, like for example Steve Vai, he uses picks only, right? He can do that. I use slide, and if I do slide, you have to have control with your fingers as well. So thanks for the question, but that's my best answer I can do. Well, thank you for the questions. Great lessons for me, and I hope to see you soon.